Hello, and welcome to a Purpose-Driven Marriage podcast. We are Duane and Nadine Stewart, and we love any and all things marriage. You've tuned into the right place if you're looking for actionable, practical tips to help you overcome real-life obstacles common to real relationships. We're here to help you strive for a marriage as God has designed it and not as the world has defined it. Because why settle for a good marriage when you can have a great one?
Hello, and welcome to another episode of a Purpose-Driven Marriage podcast. I'm Duane.
And I am Nadine, and we're so happy that you joined us today.
Yep.
As always, you could be listening to any other podcast right now, and you've chosen to listen to ours.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I should have become a flight attendant. I feel like that's something I heard
You
on
could have
an
been
airline.
anywhere. You could have used any other airline. You choose ours. We so appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No, but
Right.
we seriously do. We appreciate that people are listening
Thanks
to
for
our
listening.
podcast.
Yeah.
And so we're happy to have you guys here with us.
Yeah, and today we are talking about something that is near and dear to my heart. Something that I just love to do all the time.
No, it isn't. It is absolutely not anything
Oh, this
that you
comes
love
so
to do.
easy to me, Nadine.
No, it does not.
Am I talking about opposites right now?
No, what we're about to talk about is something that I can tell you were just dreading this topic. You knew it was coming, but it wasn't your favorite. And I mean, to be honest, I don't think it's anyone's favorite. Because today we're talking about
Apologizing.
saying I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness. I mean, you know, the after effect, after I apologize, after saying I'm sorry, that's a great thing, right? Just being back to where we should be, but just the process of doing it is so difficult.
Why? Why is it so hard?
So hard. Well, part of it's ego. You know what I mean? Just sometimes I'm like, man, that wasn't my fault. Like, why do I have to say sorry? It wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
Or it could just be me owning up to my responsibility, admitting that I was wrong, right? I think that is part of it too. Like sometimes I may or may not agree that I was wrong. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's hard to say sorry if you don't necessarily believe that you're wrong. But that's also like a block in my mind thinking, okay, maybe I need to kind of step outside of myself and then empathize with my wife, is get in her shoes and really understand, okay, so why are you feeling this way? If I did that, then I probably would have different feelings about, was I wrong or was I not wrong?
Well, it's interesting, babe, because if we were to go back and listen to one of our previous podcasts, when we were talking about the 4 horsemen, and when we were bringing up each one, you said that you can relate 100% to the defensiveness one.
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
And I think that having a tendency to be defensive and having difficulty with apologizing, because that would require that in some way, shape, or form, you are admitting that you may have done something wrong.
Yes.
I think they kind of go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that. And that I think there is definitely some overlap with that as well, for sure. Because if I'm not agreeing that I'm wrong and I'm being defensive, then that could definitely bleed into whatever issues we're dealing with at the time and make that worse because I'm not empathizing with you. And at the same time, it'll do the same thing because when it comes to apologies, if you're not sincere, and we'll talk about how to be sincere in an apology, and you don't truly believe that you need to apologize, then your apology is going to really fall flat. It's really going to be a non-apology, and you're going to have to continue dealing with the same issue that you've been dealing with until you do it right.
Yeah, and I think perspective is so key here because oftentimes we're apologizing from our point of view, or we think we need to apologize from our point of view, what our role that we think we played and the role that we think our spouse played, when in fact, when it comes to apologizing, the best position to do it from is from the perspective of the other person. But that requires a lot of maturity.
Nadine?
Yes.
Are there times when both parties should apologize about a certain thing? Because I keep thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, is it just a one-way street? Like, okay, I did something wrong to you, and so I apologize, right? And now we're done. But are there times when it's like, I apologize to you, but it's like, hey, don't you got something to say to me too?
So one thing I tell my clients is The greatest path to change is when change begins within ourselves.
Yeah.
And we must learn to do the right thing independent of what our spouse is doing.
Yeah.
Right. And so to answer your question, is there ever a time when both should apologize? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that there's plenty of times when the relationship could benefit from both parties apologizing. Is it the healthiest to apologize with the expectation that the other person is going to apologize as well? Absolutely not. Like that would be setting yourself up for disappointment.
Yeah. You take care of what you need to take care of, and then allow your spouse to kind of work through that as whatever they're dealing with as
Absolutely.
well. Right?
If you end up getting an apology, which, it'd be nice anytime that happens, then great. Like that's a huge praise and we're excited about that. But if you don't, you did the right thing by apologizing and owning up to what you did, even if maybe you're not even in complete agreement that you did everything that you're being accused of, but just the acknowledgement that in the process your spouse was hurt.
Yeah.
That could be what you're apologizing for.
That's an important piece.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and
go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say, but let's talk about the benefits to an apology. Like, why is it a big deal?
I think it's a big deal because there is a whole lot of unresolved frustration. There's a lot of unresolved anger and probably some resentment in there if the apology doesn't happen. I think about timing sometimes too. It's important to apologize, but it's also important to apologize in the right time. Because if you wait too long, which I've done before, trust me on this one, you're like, how come you didn't do it earlier today? I'm like, I thought about it, but I was still angry. You know what I mean? I didn't feel like it.
I was angry that you were angry with me.
That's right. And so what happens? You have anger. You got frustration. You have your mind is starting to, so they don't want to apologize? Fine. Like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden that just continues on and it just makes it worse. It's just like a big old snowball, I think.
But if you do apologize, you apologize at the right time, in the right ways, that really can help to restore trust in the relationship.
No doubt.
Because we talk all the time about how trust is not built in the promises, but in the follow through. Yeah, that apology is part of following through on your commitment to take care of each other.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I agree totally with that. And I think it also helps with communication as well.
Oh, yes.
Because I think once you've kind of reestablished the pathway of good communication, there's no more roadblocks, meaning all this, like, you need to apologize stuff is now out the way because you've done it. Now your spouse is free to now hear what you're saying. You know what I mean? And communicate to you in a way that's respectful, that's loving, and without any reservations, without any frustration or anything else that's still unresolved.
Yeah, I mean, that's why a lot of relationship experts say that sometimes conflict can create the greatest opportunities for intimacy in a relationship, because when you find out how to find that sweet spot, the apology that really resonates with your spouse's heart, and you guys are communicating, you're building connection again, goodness, I mean, the intimacy that can come from that could be unmatched.
Yeah. So what you're saying is it also strengthens the bond.
It strengthens the bond between us. Yes, absolutely. And it reduces stress.
Yeah.
Right? Can you imagine the mental load on someone that is carrying that weight of not having been apologized to, right? Where they
need some closure.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what they need. It's that acknowledgement or belief that their spouse cares about them, can empathize with them, where they feel validated about their feelings. A lot of people have told me that sometimes they feel like a crazy person. The terminology gaslighting, where their spouse is somehow convincing them that how they feel or what they think of the situation never happened.
Yeah.
Right? They shouldn't be feeling the way that they should be feeling. They perceive the situation all wrong. That's not how it happened.
Your feelings are real, right? You can't say that somebody is wrong in their feelings because they're feeling it.
Yeah, but can you imagine if it's your spouse, if it's me telling you, no, you shouldn't feel that way.
Yeah.
Right? Like that would be a horrible feeling.
So how should I feel about what you just did?
Exactly. So the mental load and the amount of stress that one can feel.
Yeah.
And probably from both sides, right? Because what loving couple wants to have that wall between them?
Nobody.
And the wall being an apology that separates them, an apology that one doesn't want to give.
And knowing that you're the one that could break the wall down. I think it's kind of both ways, but in my opinion, like the person that needs to apologize, knowing that they need to apologize and they don't do it, they're creating tension, they're creating conflict, they're creating that wall, and it's actually every moment that they don't do anything, it continues to get higher and higher.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about the DNA of a good apology.
Well, so remember Gary Chapman, right, from the 5 love languages. Well, I guess he and Dr. Jennifer Thomas did a little study. They were observing some things in their counseling offices where they noticed that couples were misunderstanding each other's apologies. One might be saying, I'm sorry, but it just wasn't resonating.
Right.
Yeah, it's not hitting right. And so it just didn't have the desired effect of forgiveness and reconciliation. And so they wrote a book.
Yeah.
And in that book, they touched on 5 distinct ways that people apologize.
Right.
And so the 5 ways that they mention are expressing regret,
Yeah.
accepting responsibility, making a restitution, genuinely repenting, and requesting forgiveness. And just like some people's response to the idea of the 5 love languages, there are some people where one part of that apology framework resonates with them more than others. Like you and I were talking about how, yeah, it's nice when you say, oh, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. That was an apology. But for me, right?
You're like, and
Yes.
continue, go on.
For me, I know how much I pour into our relationship, right? And so if there's ever a time where I feel hurt, I want to know that you recognize I was hurt by whatever action that was. And I want you to not just recognize I was hurt, but I want you to feel so badly about the fact that you just hurt me.
Yes.
Right?
I know. And I need to feel bad. And sometimes that's a challenge, right?
Yeah.
So when we talk about expressing regret, that's kind of like the basic apology that everybody goes to, I feel like, when they're getting ready to apologize to somebody. Hey, I'm sorry for whatever I did. I'm sorry for eating the rest of the food when you were waiting for it. You saved it for yourself. Or I'm sorry for getting home late after golf or whatever it is, right? And that's kind of the first piece of it. And it's a good start. And to be totally honest with you, that was my apology in the beginning of our relationship. It was like, okay, that was cool, but I think we got to go a little deeper than that.
Well, expressing regret can actually include just a little bit more than that, right? So it could be, you ate the last piece of cake.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm so sorry I did that.
Why was it me that ate the last piece of cake?
I'm just giving an example.
You're just okay, good.
And so I'm sorry I ate the last piece of cake. I knew you were waiting for that. And I'm sorry that I allowed my cravings to get the best of me.
Right.
In most cases, I'd be like, babe, now I need to go get me some more cake, right?
Yeah.
Not a big deal.
But that's later on, though, right? Because the next thing is accepting responsibility.
Yes, accepting responsibility would take it one step further. That was totally my bad. I knew you were saving that last piece of cake for after you got done with your workout to cancel out that workout.
That was your Friday cheat meal.
Yeah, exactly.
Or something, right?
Yeah, I am so sorry. I went into it knowing what I was doing. And I'm sorry about that.
Well, I can tell you with 100% certainty that this one is the most difficult one for me. And to be honest with you, I don't know about other guys, but I bet you there's a lot of guys out there that kind of feel the same way as me. It's hard to accept responsibility. That was an easy one. Like the cake was an easy one, right? I mean, sometimes it's just things that you don't even really realize that you're doing. But I think it is important to make sure that your empathy level is very high so that you can now step in the shoes of you and understand how you were feeling and what I did and how that made you feel. And then you can kind of go back into myself and say, oh, okay, I get it. Like, I understand. I'm sorry. Now, accept the responsibility is a lot easier because now I know it from your perspective.
Well, let me ask you this, babe, because in the beginning of the show, you said that this is really hard to do because of ego. What does that mean?
Well, in my mind, ego is that it wasn't my fault. It's more about ego is just me being more selfish than anything.
Yeah,
You
it
know what I
couldn't
mean?
have been me.
It wasn't me because I'm always thinking about you. Like I'm always thinking about your best interest, and that's not what I was thinking about. Like whenever that happened, right?
Yeah.
And so thinking about it from this perspective, if I did something that offended you or made you feel bad or whatever it was, but I didn't intend to do that, then all of a sudden now me is like, well, that wasn't my intent, babe. You know what I mean? That's not even what I was trying to do. I think you misinterpreted that. And that's what I'm talking about is the ego that comes into play. That's like a roadblock in my mind that really affects my ability to be responsible for that thing that even though I didn't really feel like I did it intentionally, that's what I'm talking about.
See, that's a surprise to me because I thought you were going to say that the ego is you and I not agreeing that whatever it is that I need you to apologize for was even an issue in the first place. Right? Like,
well, that's basically what I'm saying.
Okay.
That's basically what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, because I might think it's a big deal and you're like, what are you talking about? It's not a big deal. So it has nothing to do with your intentions, but it's more how we are framing the event, the action. Like I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so hurt because you said these things to me. And you're like, I don't know what you're talking about. No one should be upset those words because that's not hurtful. So you're just being petty.
Yeah.
Like you're just being too sensitive.
Yeah. I do think that way sometimes.
Like you're just being too.
Let's call it 1A and 1B.
Okay.
Because I do feel like that's one of them for sure. And then the other one is kind of what I was saying.
So
earlier.
we just basically expanded the definition of what
kind of ego looks like.
What that means for you.
Definitely.
Well, so number 3 is making restitution.
The language involves taking action to make amends for the harm caused, right? So it could be something like, hey, I know I let you down. Let me make it right. Like, how can I make this better? Can I rub your feet? Can I go get you another piece of cake?
Yes.
You know,
So
something like
right.
that. Yeah, just making it right.
Making it right. Undoing what you did.
Yeah.
I like that, actually.
Yeah.
You know, I think that follows the accepting responsibility.
That's the action piece of it.
Exactly.
It's like, hey, I've said it. I've thought about it. And then now I'm going to act on it because I know how this affected you. And I want you to feel totally opposite of how you feel right now.
Well, I feel like number 4, genuinely repenting, it kind of follows this path, right? To when we talk about trust is built in the follow through, genuinely repenting. So this involves showing a sincere desire to change and improve one's behavior.
Okay. So now that we start talking about this, I feel like this one right here is part of my language. I really do. Because I think about what I've thought about in the past. When people apologize, I always say, and you've heard me say this, don't be sorry, just don't do it again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That is my mentality. Even when I'm apologizing to you, like, hey, bro, don't be sorry, just don't do it again. So yes, you still got to be sorry, right? I mean, that's part of it. But what I'm saying is the repentance piece of it. I think that's the most important part. Is like, okay, once you've gone through that process, what tells me that you are truly sorry about it is that you don't do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because this, I think, it not only validates your spouse's feelings, right?
Yeah.
So I understand that my actions have hurt you. And so now you're saying, because I recognize that what I did hurt you, I'm going to work on myself to make sure I don't do it again, right? Whatever it is that's going to take, I'm going to fix that so that I don't do it again.
Yeah.
Because we talk about the biblical definition of repentance.
It's a 180.
It's a 180.
Turning away from your sin and going in the opposite direction.
Exactly. It's a literal, if you're facing your sin, you're engaged in your sin. Repenting is you turn around and you start walking in the opposite direction. You don't even look back.
That's right.
And so I feel like that is moving us towards the follow through and the actions that start rebuilding that trust.
Yeah.
Right? And so then the last one is requesting forgiveness. Yeah. And this one is is basically saying, hey, I know I hurt you and I'm truly sorry. And then after you've gone through expressing the regret, accepting responsibility, making that restitution, genuinely repenting, then you've earned the right to ask for forgiveness. And the cool thing about this is if you've done the other four, if you've done the other four, you've lightened the burden.
You've made it easier.
You've made it easier for your spouse to forgive you.
Yes.
Right?
And so should forgiveness come at that moment, or should it be okay with the other person not being ready to forgive yet? Depending.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it is their prerogative on whether or not they're going to choose to forgive. You were going to sing that song. No, it is absolutely up to them when they're ready to forgive.
Yeah.
Because at this point, the person asking for forgiveness, we're like, okay, I have done all these things. I have expressed regret. I've accepted responsibility. I've made restitution. I'm genuinely repenting. I am working on myself to make sure I don't do this again.
Right.
Will you please forgive me?
Yeah.
That act is putting the ball
in
the other court.
Another court.
Yeah, in the other court. And so now it's up to them whether or not they are ready to forgive.
All right. So what happens at that point? So say I feel like I've been doing the apology the whole time. I don't even know what I'm apologizing for. So I've apologized, right? And, I've gotten to the point where I say, please forgive me. And now you say, nope, I ain't ready. So what do I do? Do I just kind of chill for a while? Am I just waiting? Do I have to go back and say, please forgive me again? Or am I just waiting?
You keep working on what you need to work on to make sure that you don't continue to hurt that person.
Yeah.
Because we have to remember, we joke around, right? We use a slice of cake as an example. But in the lives of our listeners, there are many, many things that they could be waiting to forgive someone about, right? We could be talking about a wife that was betrayed by her husband or a husband that was betrayed by his wife.
Yeah.
And so we have to be mindful of that. But the forgiveness is like it lies in the hands of the person that was hurt.
Yes.
The person that had to endure the damage, had to endure the pain.
Yeah.
And so if one did the harming, they wait until the other person's ready to forgive. And it's not up to them to rush that person. It's not up to them to pressure that person. It's not up to them to make the person feel badly because it might be taking them a while.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, the person that is doing the forgiveness, the sooner they can forgive, the better it is for themselves, actually.
Right.
Because we forgive not necessarily always for the benefit of the other person, but it's really us. Right. So we look at everything from a Christian perspective. We're called to forgive. We're called to hand it over to God. We're not called to carry the burdens of the world. The sooner we're able to forgive, the sooner we're able to remove that weight off of us and transfer it over to God.
Right.
And then the healing can begin.
Yeah.
First the healing within ourselves and then the healing with the relationship.
Yeah. So it does depend on the severity of whatever the offense was. Obviously, but at some point in time, there has to be forgiveness.
Oh, always. Always. You don't ever want to carry unforgiveness in your heart because that's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Yes.
Like that makes no sense.
Yeah, because you're basically killing yourself from within because you're holding it in the whole time.
Unforgiveness is a poison that will result in a slow death.
Yeah. And you're really allowing somebody else to affect your countenance, your well-being.
Yes.
Because the more you hold that in, the more like anger, frustration, your anxiety, all those things that you're feeling inside is really hurting in you internally, like physically.
Oh, absolutely.
Obviously mentally too, but
absolutely it is. Our bodies were not designed to carry all that stress, all that unforgiveness, all that bitterness, all that hate. We're not designed to do that. And so the sooner we can forgive, the sooner we're able to let go of those things that will eventually eat away at us if we just allow it to simmer.
So basically what we're doing is waiting to exhale.
Oh my gosh, babe.
I think there has to be a movie or a song reference for every episode, I think.
Oh my goodness.
That's what we're doing. So we're waiting to exhale. After you released it and forgiven, you can now exhale. Give it to God.
Your kids beg and plead that you do not bring your dad jokes into the podcast, and you're doing it. You're betraying our children.
I'm sorry.
So I used to think that the 5 apology languages were really similar to the 5 love languages in that there's one that you resonate with the most. And I know that in their research, they did see that there's some that are more effective than others. But when I look at this, they all seem to go so well together. Yeah. It's almost like they follow a pattern, right? Like expressing the regret. I'm so sorry for what I said. You know, that was so thoughtless and hurtful, and I regret it deeply. And accepting responsibility. And I take full responsibility for that. I messed up. And then making a restitution. You know what? I'm going to fix that right now. I'm going to fix that, and I'm going to find a way to make it up to you.
Yeah.
Right. And then genuinely repenting, because I know that my actions, what I did, that hurt you.
Yeah.
And that kills me that somehow something I did hurt you. Right. And so now I'm going to go and work on myself to make sure that that never happens again, because the thought of me hurting you just is the most painful thing.
It hurts me. Yeah.
It hurts me so much. So I am so sorry.
Yeah.
Will you please forgive me? You see how all that works together?
Yeah.
Right? I almost feel like if I focused on just requesting forgiveness, I haven't earned that right.
Yeah, it's so true.
So I think that these 5 things are really the framework of an effective and impactful apology.
Yeah.
So here's some tips for how not to apologize. Right?
Okay.
So there's the right way of apologizing.
And the wrong way is, I'm sorry, and, I won't do it again, but... you did this, and that's why I was angry.
So why is that wrong?
It's wrong because you're deflecting responsibility.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, you're deflecting responsibility, and you're really not taking accountability for your own actions. Hey, I need you to be remorseful. I need you to empathize. I need you to want to make it right. And I want you to ask for forgiveness. But what I don't want you to do is deflect and then put some of the responsibility on me.
Yes. And anytime you apologize, but then you add the word but to the end of the apology.
Start over.
It cancels everything else that you said before that.
Yep.
Anything that came before that suddenly is out the window.
Yeah.
No one's hearing that anymore because now all they can hear is the deflection.
Like, wow, you just put it back on me, huh? All right.
It's somehow my fault.
Yep. I think so. Anything else?
You know what? I think we'll just leave it right there because that was a pretty big
buts.
one.
Yes.
No buts. You're a nut.
I know.
You're a nut.
I think we need to go get cake.
Now you're craving sweets. All right. Well, we hope that this has been helpful. This is not always our favorite thing to talk about, but hey, you know what? If we can't learn to apologize the right way, then we're not doing things right. And it will only hurt our marriage if we don't figure out how to apologize in the way that our spouse needs
to hear it.
Exactly. And using this framework to have the most impactful, most effective apology can only help you and your spouse get to a purpose-driven marriage.
Amen.
Well, thank you guys for listening in on this one. If you like this, please share it with other people. And if you loved it, feel free to go ahead and give us a review.
Comment.
And we will talk with you guys next week.
Next time.
Thank you for tuning in.